Hello, dear one. I'm delighted that you are here with me in this beautiful moment of now. Saturn squaring Pholus. This is a transit that is occurring in the sky, both from a tropical standpoint as well as a sidereal standpoint. So this episode will be a complete forecast. For those of you that may be on your ascension journey, you'll be able to see the evolution from how the transit is felt in Tier 1, unawakened humanity, or the unawakened ego, to Tier 2 and leveraging it for reversing your wheel and going in to slay your monsters on your own hero's journey, aka taking the red pill as a disciple, all the way to the initiate level, the hierarchical, higher octave Tier 3, where you are then leveraging oftentimes different zodiac sign, but the chemistry, the interrelationship, the geometry is identical. But it's really fun to see them side by side, because you get to see how it affects each group and ultimately how you can embody the highest energies within you and bringing the new earth into this gorgeous grid. So this transit happens on June 1st at 5:29 p.m. Pacific time. And in tropical, Saturn is in Aries with Pholus in Capricorn. And in sidereal, Saturn is in Pisces and Pholus is in Sagittarius. So let's dive into Tier 1 first. So a square is basically 90 degrees. It is a friction point. It's often referred to as extreme crisis, extreme friction, really structural testing. And it's the corner, if you will, that must be turned. So to the unawakened ego, or essentially Tier 1, a square is a punishing blockage. It's a frustrating wall that denies them of what they want. But to the initiate in Tier 3, a square is just a necessary friction point of the cosmos. It's the exact pressure, if you will, to really forge your spiritual muscle and bring down a higher dimension of reality and into reality. And when we're talking about the placements themselves, so this applying to all three tiers, Saturn is Ray 3 active intelligence, but also the gatekeeper and the lord of karma. And squaring Pholus, who is the cosmic catalyst, basically the unbottler. So this relationship, this square, is really Saturn strictly testing the structural integrity of, let's say, the vessel, while Pholus unbottles massive ancestral pressure. And being that this is on either side of the fence, so tropical is happening at 12 degrees, sidereal is happening at 13 degrees, we're talking about the second decan. That's where the rationalization, when we look at it from a Tier 1 perspective, the matrix is rationalizing. Well, I'm doing this because, or I have to because, or I'm going to do this therefore. So it's the ego's way of trying to get what it wants and trying to say that the method in which it's going through, it has to. So we zoom in on tropical. Pholus is unbottling this immense pressure from the Capricorn room, which is basically matrix ambition. And the ego then in Aries is going to misuse the Saturnian friction to aggressively force its will. So what this can sound like for unawakened humanity, the unawakened matrix Tier 1, is I am convinced I have to be the hero or the boss. I rationalize my aggression and my dominance by telling myself that if I don't take charge or force things to happen, everyone else will fail. So it's very heavy egoic. So what the matrix experience is like in that Tier 1 is that the ego attaches profound arrogance to its aggression. And the unawakened ego believes that their brute force makes them the hero of the story. Obviously, the story that they're telling themselves. And they refuse to listen to advice. They bulldoze over everyone else's needs. And they operate from a place of pure, blinding selfishness that is attempting to disguise and cloaking themselves as leadership. Now, as we shift to Tier 2 for our disciples that are on our hero's journey, the esoteric ruler of Aries at the disciple level is Mercury. And the disciple leverages Mercury to stop the psychological warfare of the matrix and wage a disciplined, really campaign for truth. So this is really a shift to listening and observing. So instead of action and aggression, listening, observing. It's like a sudden realization that true power is not an aggressive attack. Instead, it's a perfectly focused, disciplined mental tension. And I left tension in there for a reason. You got to have a little friction. That's part of that square, because through that friction comes mutation, comes transformation, comes opportunity. Remember, we are here to experience that friction. Whether we like it or not, our egos do not prefer it. And so what this sounds like for a disciple is I am realizing that my anger is just misdirected fuel. I am actively working on holding my tongue, stopping my impulsive reactions, and learning to sit in the uncomfortable tension before I strike. So really, disciples, you are transitioning from being reckless fire to becoming the hearth that contains it. The place, the home, the center, the heart of the hearth. And really understanding that the Saturnian square is not punishment. It is instead the exact forge that is required to build unshakable endurance. Now we shift to tier 3. And those of you who might be in your pre-journey, unawakened humanity in tier 1, or you might be a disciple on your journey in tier 2, the reason I put these together is because I think it's important for all of us to understand the different variances. Because as you start to see it, you can really start to play in that game because you understand how the rules are played. So, tier 3, initiates. Here we're talking about Saturn in Pisces at 13 degrees and Pholus at 13 degrees Sagittarius. Now, Pisces, being water, is about surrender, is about boundaries, and really the ocean. And it's squaring Pholus and Sagittarius. And Sagittarius is vision and truth and embodiment. So being in that decan too, the energy is really a window. It's a window to the illumination of universal empathy, where there is no longer a need to merge with others' pain. Instead, it's alchemized into this profound ability to hold oceanic space without absorbing. And so the initiate works with Pluto. That's the hierarchical ruler of Pisces. This is wielding the power of the world savior. And the initiate is not flinching at Saturn's physical test, as Saturn is deeply getting into the deep oceanic waters. And meanwhile, Pholus is unbottling the collective's grief, releasing it. And so this intense square is really to shatter the wheel of rebirth. So you as an initiate, you are choosing to stay here near the Earth's grid solely out of supreme impersonal compassion for those who are still suffering, and holding that space, that container. And you become this transparent filter almost, transmuting the heavy, unbottled ancestral trauma of Pholus, what Pholus is revealing, into pure light, while your own energy is essentially remaining entirely pristine. So you are anchoring light. So the key takeaway here is that the matrix, tier 1, unawakened humanity, is going to feel the crushing structural pressure of Saturn squaring Pholus and responding to that intense pressure with arrogant force and bulldozing others in a panicked attempt, if you will, really, to remain the boss, quote, quote, of a crumbling 3D empire. The disciple is learning to leverage this energy, understanding their own feelings in this capacity, and really realizing that true power is in stillness, and practicing sitting in that chair on that throne. While the initiate, despite it being in a different sign, but in this case, I feel like it's just even more intense. It's boundaryless. The vast ocean of pain being uncorked, being finally released. The initiate is really recognizing that pressure that's needed for that alchemical forge. And they stand in their light and effortlessly absorb the shockwave, leveraging Pluto to act as this pristine sovereign filter that dissolves the collective's unbottled trauma into the cosmic ocean. And what's so interesting in an upcoming episode here is that we have this square, and in just a couple days, on June 4th, Mars will actually trine Pholus. So we will have this release coming from all of this structural, energetic kicking up of the dust, pulling things out, popping the cork, getting things into the air. It will all rush forward with Mars. So I'll have that update about Mars trining Pholus in an upcoming episode. And for me, I feel like this is so important to understand the sky's energies, because as my guides share, it's kind of like the way, if you will, for our guides to ensure that we continue to have enough things stirring up, enough friction to facilitate the change that's needed. Because sometimes we can get comfy. And this is how we can leverage the transits and understand and seek to understand their energies, to leverage them to build the new earth. If you're interested in anything I'm speaking about, I will put my Soul Tech Stack course where you can learn about your charts, as well as more forecasting information about esoteric astrology in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining me here. And until we meet again, namaste.